When was the last time you truly had your eyes checked? Not just a quick vision test to update your glasses prescription, but a real retinal examination where a specialist looked deep into the back of your eyes to see the actual tissue responsible for your vision. Most people can't remember, and that matters more than you think, because vision loss rarely arrives like a lightning strike. It happens quietly, slowly, almost invisibly. First, you notice you need brighter light to read at night. Then driving after sunset feels slightly different. Faces in dim restaurants lose sharpness. Colors don't separate the way they used to. And little by little, your world begins to soften around the edges. Most people call it just aging and move on. But here's the part nobody talks about enough. Many of the biological processes connected to age-related vision decline are influenced by what you do every single day, especially what you eat. I once spoke with a 73-year-old retired teacher named Catherine. She had spent her entire life reading, writing, and absorbing information. Then she was diagnosed with early age-related macular degeneration. Her doctor told her to come back in a year so they could monitor it. That was it. No plan, no strategy, no guidance. She sat across from me and said something I'll never forget. I feel like I'm just waiting to lose my sight. That feeling is more common than people realize. But what happened after Catherine changed one simple evening habit completely changed the way she thought about her future. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why. The fruit we're about to talk about contains one of the most unique combinations of eye-supporting compounds ever studied in nutrition research. And the timing of when you eat it may be just as important as the fruit itself. Most people hear its name and immediately think they already know everything about it. Trust me, you probably don't. Because this conversation is not about generic healthy eating advice. This is about the biology of your retina and the specific mechanisms that slowly damage vision over time. The retina, especially the macula at its center, is one of the most metabolically active tissues in the human body. It consumes enormous amounts of oxygen every single day just to process light into the images you see. But that high energy demand comes with a cost. Over time, it creates oxidative stress, unstable molecules that slowly damage delicate retinal cells year after year. Think of it like tiny sparks constantly landing on the same piece of fabric. For decades, your body repairs the damage faster than it accumulates. But eventually, the balance begins to shift, and that's when subtle vision decline starts becoming noticeable. But oxidative stress is only one part of the story. Chronic low-grade inflammation inside retinal tissue accelerates the process even further. At the same time, proteins in the lens of the eye begin to stiffen and cloud through a process called glycation, which is strongly linked to cataract formation. And perhaps most importantly, the eye slowly loses a protective pigment layer made from two specific carotenoids, lutein and zeaxanthin. That pigment acts like built-in sunglasses for your retina, filtering harmful blue light before it damages the cells responsible for sharp vision. Once that protective layer becomes depleted, the retina becomes far more vulnerable to long-term degeneration. And here's what makes this so important. Unlike many age-related changes in the body, macular pigment density can actually be influenced through consistent nutrition. Large clinical studies have confirmed something remarkable about the eye. The nutrients concentrated in the retina directly influence how resilient it remains as we age. Researchers studying age-related macular degeneration found that increasing specific carotenoids in the diet was associated with measurable improvements in the protective pigment layer of the macula. In other words, the retina responds to what you consistently feed it. But before I reveal the fruit at the center of this discussion, we need to talk about the foods people usually associate with eye health, because some of them genuinely help, but not in the way most people think. Let's start with blueberries. Blueberries absolutely deserve credit for their antioxidant content. Their anthocyanins have been linked to improved retinal blood flow and reduced inflammatory stress inside the eye. If you already eat blueberries regularly, that's a good thing. But blueberries mainly support circulation. They are not especially rich in the exact retinal carotenoids most strongly connected to macular pigment density. They help one part of the system, not the entire picture. Then there are carrots, the most famous eye health food in the world. Carrots are rich in beta-carotene, which the body converts into vitamin A. And yes, vitamin A is critical for low-light vision. Severe deficiency can absolutely affect eyesight. But for most adults over 60 eating a reasonably balanced diet, vitamin A deficiency is not the primary driver of age-related vision decline. The bigger issues are oxidative damage, inflammation, macular pigment depletion, and lens glycation. Carrots support vision broadly, but they don't directly target the most important mechanisms behind retinal aging. That's why so many people eat healthy foods for years and still feel like their vision slowly continues to worsen. They're supporting the right organ but not necessarily the right pathways. And the fruit we're about to discuss stands out because it targets several of those pathways at the same time in a way very few foods can. There's one more food that often appears in conversations about natural vision support: tart cherries. Like blueberries, tart cherries contain beneficial antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds. Some studies suggest they may help reduce oxidative stress throughout the body, including inside retinal tissue. But again, they mainly act through general antioxidant activity. They do not significantly support macular pigment density, they don't meaningfully influence lens glycation, and they don't deliver the specific carotenoids most concentrated in the retina itself. That's where this next fruit becomes different. The fruit is papaya. And before you dismiss it as just another tropical fruit, stay with me. Because what makes papaya unique is not one nutrient. It's the combination. Papaya supports vision through 4 separate biological pathways connected to retinal and lens protection. The first mechanism involves zeaxanthin, one of the 2 major carotenoids concentrated directly inside the macula. Think of the macula as the ultra-high-definition center of your vision. It's the area responsible for reading, recognizing faces, and seeing fine detail clearly. To protect itself, the macula uses a natural pigment shield made largely from lutein and zeaxanthin. This pigment absorbs damaging blue-spectrum light before it can reach the delicate photoreceptor cells underneath. But here's the problem. That protective shield naturally declines with age, and when it weakens, the retina becomes more exposed to oxidative stress every single day. Zeaxanthin from papaya isn't just a random antioxidant floating through the bloodstream. The body actively transports it into retinal tissue, where it becomes part of that protective pigment layer itself. That's why researchers studying macular degeneration pay such close attention to foods rich in these compounds. The goal isn't simply to eat healthy. The goal is to supply the retina with the exact materials it uses to defend itself, and papaya delivers one of the most effective natural combinations for doing exactly that. The second mechanism involves vitamin C, and this is where the eye becomes truly fascinating. Inside the front chamber of your eye is a clear fluid called the aqueous humor. Its job is to nourish and protect delicate structures like the lens. What most people don't realize is that this fluid contains vitamin C at concentrations dramatically higher than the rest of the bloodstream. That's not accidental. The eye actively pulls vitamin C into this area because it relies on it as a frontline antioxidant defense. Imagine the lens of your eye like a perfectly transparent window. Every day, light exposure and normal metabolism create oxidative stress that tries to fog that window over time. Vitamin C acts like a constant filtration system, helping neutralize those damaging reactions before they accumulate. But as people age, dietary habits change, nutrient absorption becomes less efficient, and oxidative stress gradually increases. Over time, that balance shifts. Papaya happens to be one of the richest natural sources of highly bioavailable vitamin C, delivering a substantial amount in a single serving. That means it supports not only the retina, but also the environment surrounding the lens itself. Then comes the third mechanism, and this is the one almost nobody talks about: glycation. Glycation occurs when sugar molecules bind to proteins and slowly damage their structure over time. In the lens of the eye, this process affects proteins called crystallins, which are responsible for keeping the lens clear and transparent. As glycation accumulates year after year, those proteins begin sticking together, creating the cloudy appearance associated with cataracts. Think of it like steam slowly fogging up glass from the inside. At first, the change is invisible. Then one day, colors seem duller, headlights look harsher, and vision loses its crispness. Papaya contains a natural enzyme called papain that researchers have studied for its potential role in reducing some of these damaging protein interactions. No fruit can magically stop aging, but this is one of the few foods associated with mechanisms directly linked to lens clarity itself. And that makes it extremely interesting from a long-term vision perspective. The fourth mechanism may be the most important of all: inflammation inside the retina. Most people think inflammation only affects joints or muscles, but chronic low-grade inflammation also develops inside the eye itself. And over time, it creates an environment where retinal cells become more vulnerable to damage. This is especially important in age-related macular degeneration, where inflammatory stress accelerates the breakdown of photoreceptor cells responsible for sharp central vision. Papaya contains carotenoids like lycopene and beta-cryptoxanthin, compounds associated with reduced inflammatory signaling in retinal tissue. Think of inflammation like a slow-burning heat source beneath sensitive electronics. The damage isn't dramatic in a single moment. It's gradual, constant, quiet. Year after year, that invisible stress slowly degrades the system until symptoms finally appear. Reducing that background inflammatory burden may help preserve retinal resilience over time. And this is where Catherine's story becomes so powerful. She didn't experience some overnight miracle. Her eyesight didn't suddenly become perfect. What changed was something more important: objective signs that her retinal protection was improving. After consistently following a simple nighttime routine for about 3 months, her eye specialist measured an increase in her macular pigment density. That meant the protective carotenoid layer in her retina had actually improved. And emotionally, that changed everything for her. She no longer felt like someone passively waiting for decline. She felt like someone actively supporting her vision every single day. That psychological shift matters more than most people realize, because when people believe decline is completely inevitable, they stop paying attention to the small habits that influence long-term outcomes. But once you understand the biology, your daily choices begin to feel different. And now we need to talk about the specific protocol, because according to the research, when and how papaya is consumed may significantly influence how effectively those protective compounds are absorbed and used by the body. The protocol itself is surprisingly simple, but every detail has a reason behind it. The recommendation is 1 cup of ripe papaya, roughly 140 to 150 grams, eaten about 60 to 90 minutes before sleep. That timing is not random. During sleep, the retina enters one of its most active repair phases of the entire day. Specialized cells in the eye begin clearing damaged photoreceptor material and supporting overnight renewal processes that are essential for maintaining retinal function over time. By consuming carotenoid-rich foods shortly before this repair window begins, the body may have those nutrients available precisely when retinal tissue is most actively using them. In other words, this is less about eating fruit at night and more about aligning nutrient delivery with the biology of retinal recovery. But the next detail matters just as much: ripeness. Deep orange papaya contains significantly higher concentrations of carotenoids than pale yellow, underripe fruit. The color is not cosmetic, it's a visual indicator of nutrient density. As papaya ripens, compounds like zeaxanthin and beta-cryptoxanthin increase dramatically. If the fruit is firm and pale when you buy it, letting it ripen at room temperature for a few days can meaningfully change its nutritional profile. Then comes the step most people overlook entirely: fat pairing. The key carotenoids in papaya are fat-soluble, which means the body absorbs them far more effectively when consumed alongside healthy fats. Without fat, a substantial portion may pass through the digestive system unused. That's why pairing papaya with a few walnuts, some avocado, or even a small amount of olive oil can dramatically improve absorption. Some studies suggest carotenoid bioavailability may increase by 50 to 100% when eaten with dietary fat. In other words, the walnuts aren't just a side snack, they're part of the delivery system. And there's one more optional addition that may provide an extra layer of support. A squeeze of fresh lime over the papaya may seem like a small detail, but it adds another burst of vitamin C while slightly improving the absorption environment inside the digestive tract. It also turns the routine into something more intentional, a nightly ritual rather than just another healthy habit you forget after 3 days. And consistency is everything here. One serving won't transform your vision overnight. The retina changes slowly. Macular pigment density builds gradually over weeks and months of repeated nutrient delivery. That's why researchers studying these compounds usually track changes over 8 to 12 weeks, not overnight. The body needs time to deposit those carotenoids into retinal tissue. Think of it like slowly reinforcing a protective shield one layer at a time. There are also useful alternatives for days when fresh papaya isn't available. Golden kiwi is one option. It provides extremely high levels of vitamin C along with lutein, which works together with zeaxanthin as part of the eye's protective pigment layer. While kiwi doesn't deliver the same concentration of zeaxanthin as papaya, it complements the system well and supports antioxidant defenses in a different way. Another powerful option is goji berries. Gram for gram, goji berries are one of the richest known dietary sources of zeaxanthin. Research has shown measurable improvements in macular pigment density in adults consuming them consistently over time. Rehydrating dried goji berries in warm water before eating them may improve texture, and make them easier to incorporate into a nightly routine. Rotating between papaya, kiwi, and goji berries across the week creates a broader range of carotenoids and antioxidants for the retina. But there's something important to understand here. Nutrition builds protection, but lifestyle determines how quickly that protection is used up. You cannot spend hours every night exposing your eyes to intense blue light, ignore UV protection entirely, and expect nutrition alone to compensate for it. Supporting the retina also means reducing the stress placed on it every day. And that brings us to the 5 rules that determine whether this entire protocol actually reaches its full potential. Rule number 1, choose deeply orange papaya whenever possible. The richer the color, the higher the concentration of the carotenoids your retina actually uses. Pale yellow fruit may still be healthy, but it simply doesn't deliver the same density of active compounds. Think of the color as your nutrient map. Rule number 2, never skip the healthy fat pairing. This is non-negotiable if your goal is absorption. Zeaxanthin, lycopene, and beta-cryptoxanthin need fat to cross the intestinal wall efficiently. Without it, much of their potential benefit is lost before the body can even use them. 4 or 5 walnuts are ideal because they also provide omega-3 fatty acids, which help support the structure of retinal cell membranes themselves. Rule number 3, don't rely only on standard vision tests. Most people think 20/20 vision means healthy eyes, but visual acuity only measures how clearly you see in that moment. It does not measure the strength of the retina's protective pigment layer. A person can have excellent eyesight today while still having low macular pigment density underneath the surface. That's why some specialists now offer macular pigment optical density testing, which measures the concentration of protective carotenoids directly inside the retina. It provides a much clearer picture of long-term retinal resilience. Rule number 4, commit to consistency. The real intervention is not one serving of papaya, it's the repeated nightly delivery of nutrients over months. The retina responds slowly but steadily. And finally, rule number 5, protect what you're building. The same blue light and UV exposure that slowly damage retinal tissue can also deplete the protective systems you're trying to strengthen. Using warmer screen settings after sunset, reducing nighttime brightness, and wearing proper UV protective sunglasses outdoors may significantly reduce the oxidative burden placed on your eyes every single day. Nutrition and light management work together. One builds defense, the other reduces attack. And when both are consistent, the long-term effect becomes much more meaningful than either strategy alone. When Catherine returned for her follow-up appointment after 12 weeks, something surprising happened. Her specialist measured a noticeable improvement in her macular pigment density. And according to her, the most powerful part wasn't even the number itself. It was the feeling that she was no longer sitting still, waiting for decline to happen. She finally felt involved in protecting her vision instead of fearing the future of it. That's the message I want you to take away from this video. Not the idea that one fruit is a miracle cure, not the fantasy that aging can somehow be stopped, but the understanding that your eyes are living tissue influenced by the choices you make repeatedly over time. And some of those choices are far more targeted than most people realize. If you decide to try this routine, remember the full protocol. 1 cup of deeply ripe orange papaya, paired with healthy fat like walnuts, ideally 60 to 90 minutes before bed. Consistency matters more than perfection. And if red flesh papaya is available where you live, choose it whenever possible, since deeper red-orange varieties tend to contain even higher concentrations of protective carotenoids like lycopene. Most importantly, don't ignore changes in your vision simply because they arrived slowly. Difficulty driving at night, needing brighter light to read, struggling with contrast, or noticing increased glare are all signals worth paying attention to. Your eyes often whisper long before they scream. So let me ask you one last question. When was the last time you had a true retinal examination? Not just a prescription update, but a real assessment of the health of your retina itself. If this video gave you something practical, grounded, and worth remembering, subscribe and stay connected, because the next topic may surprise you even more. The everyday habit millions of people repeat for hours without realizing how much stress it may place on their vision over time.